Chapter 384. This was the night. I don't think you're in a loop. Your goal just happens to align with the alchemist's description of the unknown king. Your only source of hope in escaping this world happens to be aligned to a fantasy, and that's not that odd. But you might end up like that fantasy, turning it into your story. Ronald said softly, then asked, "Are you sure you want to continue on this path?" Godfrey looked at his father. "Is there another option? Even if I can kill all of Cain's 4 main bodies, which I can't, I don't even know who the 4th one is. Even if I can do that, my identity as a chosen one means I'll keep being pushed until I die." He leaned back. "It's like I'm a seed. I can do nothing else other than grow if I'm being nurtured. I can only grow upward, not because I want to, but because that's how nature has decided it for me. Maybe I'll reach my peak and last for decades, or be brought down by a disaster or by a man who sees me as a nuisance. The life of that tree is just like mine." Ronald squinted, holding his breath for a while before exhaling heavily. "Life isn't that sad. Mine feels like it is. There's someone willing to hurt anyone I care about to make me go mad, and he's favored by mana. I'm willing to assume he's got no problem getting stronger. I'm growing, I know, but with every step I just keep reassuring myself that I'll get there. That's what being an adult means, son," Ronald interrupted him softly. "It's when you open your eyes to the unfairness of the world, to the pain you feel undeserving of. When you look at the sky and you wonder, is this how it's always been? When you grow yet feel hollow, when you're happy and you don't want it to end yet you know it will. A child feels the moment. An adult sees the entire picture, so we anchor ourselves to things to bring relief." Ronald smiled. "I anchored myself to you and your mother. Your mother anchored herself to you. All the treatment she got from her workplace became much easier because she thought of you. I spent 18 years roaming, most times without a roof over my head, with the itching fear that something might have happened to you or your mother, or, worse, that both of you had moved on." Ronald shut his eyes for a moment. "You battle fears that your strength can't. I am one that creates his story. Fate no longer applies to me because I was supposed to be dead on the day you were born. Fate had no plans for me anymore. But time was tampered with, and I became a fruit of that. During my journey, I met the Golden Fate Weaver, who I told you about, and I discovered Brown was created in the likeness of her pet." Ronald continued, after taking a breath. "She's long been dead, but since I had a summon that looked like her pet and carried traits of her innate skill, she made me her successor. Once, I had to make Brown consume gold to grow stronger, but then she showed me gold is more than what is dug from the earth. It was a treasure and was cherished, so was my family. The more I cherished people and things, the stronger Brown became. The Golden Fate Weaver was the only high elf I know of that saw all races as equals. The deeper she loved anyone or anything, the more strength she drew from that. That is my path, but it also means, just like her, I can lose everything once those people or those things are gone. We all have fears, son. You could lose me and still get stronger to avenge me, but I could lose you and lose the strength to do anything about it. Who has it worse?" Godfrey blinked. He found no words. "I know about what you went through, how you were criticized and mocked after my death. The truth is, if I had the chance, I would have told you to never expect anything from the public, or you might be broken by what they give you. But you're strong, and you ended up making friends and even pairing up with a girl like Isolde. You also have your old man back. There's a bright side. Don't you think so? What if I lose it all? I know now that being the strongest in the world doesn't mean you can't die. You're still vulnerable," Godfrey replied. "We can't all be invulnerable, but you can't live with that fear. You're letting it fuel you to get stronger, but it seems like it's slowly devouring you. I've noticed something. You don't fear for yourself. You're not as concerned about your death as you are for others. Haven't you thought, what if that was the same thing for those people you're concerned about?" Ronald rose to his feet. He slid the curtain open and looked outside the window. "It's already dark. We've kept your friends waiting for too long. Go meet them." Godfrey slowly rose to his feet. Ronald patted his shoulder. "Come on, you're a demigod, act like one." Godfrey smiled a bit and went straight to his room. He opened the door and stepped in only to see Percival on his bed, leaning against the wall with Lucy beside him. She was actually asleep with her head on his shoulder. Who knew how they got to that position? Godfrey swiftly retreated from the room, closed the door, and went back to the living room, but he couldn't find his father. He must have gone to his room, Godfrey mused, and left the house. He needed some fresh air. He stepped out, closed the door, and turned. His eyes widened a bit at the sight of his mother on the staircase. She sat there. It was about to happen, the moment that might cause a rift between him and his beloved mother. This was the future he saw. This was the night. "You saw the future," Valentina said, turning her face. He could see her side profile and that dull, pure white eye. Godfrey's heart fell. He didn't want this to be his origin. This was the nightmare he couldn't even fathom, to have the manna tree as his mother. She sighed. "Is that hate or fear I sense from you?" Godfrey said nothing. Valentina stood up. "Can we go on a stroll?" She began to walk. He stared at her for a minute before joining her. "I know everything you're going to say. There's no need for you to speak, just bring my mother back," he said. "But I am your mother," Valentina replied. "I created this body just to give birth to you. I can decide to dispose of it whenever I desire. Won't you appreciate me staying here to watch you grow?" Godfrey clenched his teeth as he could barely hide his glare. Watch him grow or keep a close eye on him. "If I didn't choose to give birth to you, this other personality would not exist in the first place. You should not stare at me like I'm not your true mother. I am the very one that thought of bringing you into existence," she added. "Why are you revealing yourself? Nothing would change if you don't reveal yourself, so why?" Valentina opened her palm, revealing a neatly folded piece of paper. She carefully opened it and stretched it over to him. Godfrey took the paper and glanced at it. Ancient Gods. Monarch 40, 149-9. Sovereign 50, 0, 59-9. God Kings and Queens 60, 0, 70-2. Primordials 73, 83-5. True Ancient 83, 6, 100. She smiled. "I wrote it for you. Others will soon get visions and information from different sources." True Ancient. That's the peak ascended worlds could attain. 10 generations, from generation 0 to the 9th generation, none has surpassed it. I'm showing this to you early so you'll know what you have to exceed to satisfy the reason I gave birth to you. "Can you just stop?" Godfrey stared at her with a grim look. "Can you stop?" Valentina asked back. "You can't, same for me." Seeing Godfrey's expression, she raised an eyebrow. "I'm not cruel, I've never been. I embarked on this journey of evolution, but I did not force anyone to kill the other. I only gave power and they chose what they wanted to do with it. I'm not unfair, I give strength to the weak, to an adult and to a child, to the bullied and the bully. Everyone can become a god, even an ant, because gods are nothing more than numbers to me. You think the world is cruel, it isn't. This is what fairness looks like." This is what you call fair," Godfrey yelled, trembling in rage as he struggled to calm his sudden outburst. Valentina didn't flinch. "You were able to defeat your bullies, you were able to revive Isolde because you had power. You're able to build your life to repel the authorities. You think you're just, yet you kill. Why don't you judge yourself? People have wept, I have seen them, felt what they feel because of your justified acts. Are you fair?" Her eyes narrowed. "You didn't see it, but your clash with Saul wounded 6 people who were outside that building. You didn't see them, but their pain was because of your actions. Does that make you unfair? You refuse to stop getting stronger. At your whim, thousands can be wiped out. Is it even fair for you to be alive?" Valentina took one step closer and stared deep into his black and golden eyes. "You are not a good person, Godfrey. The more powerful you get, the more you become like nature. Don't try to be like your father. I never gave birth to you so you could become that. But if you fail..." Godfrey's eyes flickered. You'll give my soul to Cain. Valentina looked at him. Yes, you're too valuable to waste in the afterlife world. Godfrey smiled, though he clenched his teeth so hard he didn't know if it hurt. He took bold steps and wrapped his arms around Valentina. As much as he wanted to walk away, as deep as her words dug into his heart, his mother, the woman he knew, was in there. He would break what happened in the future. And so he wrapped his arms around her. Frey, he heard his mother's voice as she wrapped her arms around him. What's going on? Are you okay? I am. Godfrey's folded palms opened up and he slowly patted her back. Let the pain end with you. She's still your mother. Arthur's voice rang in his head. They went back home, and while he sat before the island, his mother prepared tea. One thing he noticed was she didn't even ask why they were outside. After a short while, she brought the tea and placed it before him. Godfrey held the ceramic cup, feeling its warmth against his palms. I'm sorry for making you worried, he said, looking at her. He just had to swallow the bitter pill that his mother and the manhwa tree were the same person. The manhwa tree was indeed a necessary evil. It couldn't be killed either. Was he going to stop growing then? Since that would make him more catastrophic or turn him into an unknown, he thought for a while. The answer once again was no. It wasn't like he was allowed to stop anyway. His soul would just be handed over to someone to use. His train of thought broke when Godfrey suddenly discovered his mother was beside him. She placed his head on her bosom and patted his back. What are you thinking about? I've been talking, but you're clearly not listening. Now listen, she chuckled. You fought to protect me and Victoria against the odds, and I've seen what you can do. It's terrifying when I think about it, but I know you won't lose to Saul. There's something you need to know. Saul customized his last summon, Dax, with a relic. I was healing him during this process as he fused a relic with his summon, forcing him to become a demigod. No one knows about this yet. Godfrey's eyes sharpened. He gave Dax the soul-piercing rod. Valentina shook her head. No, it was some kind of book, a tome. Another relic. Just how much is Saul hiding? Just then there was a knock. Godfrey turned to the door, approached it, and when he was about to open the door, his hand quivered. It's been years, but sometimes his experience at Manhattan flashed through his mind when situations that looked similar to that one occurred. Exhaling to calm himself, he opened the door. Dax, I want to speak with you, Dax responded, his hands tucked into the pockets of his hoodie. It would seem Saul wasn't comfortable and had sent his newly customized and now most unpredictable summon to test the waters. Or maybe eliminate him. The game had never been fair. Right? Purple light flashed and caused a purple ring-like ripple that spread outward through a massive grass field that spread for countless kilometers, with some boulders standing like monuments and their origins stretching to the mountains at the horizon. Both men appeared, and the grass was so tall it reached their waists. Dax looked at Godfrey, brought down his hoodie, and slowly walked away from him. You know what I'm here for, he said while caressing the grass, still walking away from Godfrey. Through his side profile, Godfrey noticed the crimson veins on his face. They were like cracks. His mask, which was strapped to the back of his head with buckles at his neck, was meant to suppress something, his volcanic side from what he learnt in the past after his mother's incident. But it seemed like what he was trying to hide had taken over. Godfrey's eyes went to the grass that became black and scorched before crumbling to the ground. Saul sent you. Is it to test or eliminate me? You have a relic now, and he somehow trusts you more than his Black Knights for this mission, he said. Dax leaped to the top of a boulder about 30 meters away and sat on it. You're smart. Orders were to kill you. That wasn't what we agreed on earlier. Is he afraid I'll ruin his tournament? Dax blinked slowly. No, my master isn't the type to be afraid, but he's agitated because of your influence on the Black Order Knights. They've been a bit odd since they met you, An hour ago, he asked them if they'd be willing to kill you and Abaddon. His glorious left hand, the force of nature himself, only nodded after a while. He opened his hand and a tome appeared. It was like a book that had lost most of its pages. Only a few were left. A conflicted mind is a lost one, Dax said. Godfrey exhaled through his mouth. You're talking quite a lot. The Dax I know barely speaks. Dax nodded. Because tonight only one of us will walk out of here alive. We were once comrades. I once held back the fanatics for your mother. It's ironic this is where all that ends. I'm a summon, my choices are decided for me. You're a summoner, you decide your own fate. He rose to his feet. You have always been stronger. I hope you will win. A sudden wind blew through the grass field, causing both their hair to flutter. Jin appeared. It was a white bipedal creature with a crimson mane, massive chest and arms with abs, holding a massive hammer with cracks that looked like veins where magma flowed. The sound of Jin breathing was like the echoes of a lion's growl in a hollow mountain. Godfrey looked at Dax. This was his teacher, the man who taught him Taekwondo. Back before we became the Ignikai most nights, I didn't sleep. I would wake when the world was quiet and step outside barefoot, letting the cool mud cling between my toes. The wind would pass through the rice fields, and the entire valley would ripple like a living sea. Dax paused, watching Godfrey's expression. Above it the purple moons, 2 of them. The mother hung high and distant, calm and watchful. The daughter lingered lower, just above the dormant mountain, closer, brighter, almost curious. I used to wonder if they were watching us, if they could see me. He sighed. I would run my hands across the rice stalks, careful, like I was afraid the moment would disappear if I moved too fast. Back then the world felt endless, beautiful, and ours until Mana came. The mountains that stood like structures of old, the same one the daughter watched every night, split open. Fire poured from its mouth, the sky turned black. Ash fell like rain, thick enough to choke on. And the people. Dax's breath trembled. I watched a man I knew, a fellow farmer that I worked beside just days before, fall to his knees as fire burned through his veins. When he looked up, his eyes were gone. I called it a plague. We had power but weren't us anymore. Our mana system made us lose our humanity. Some of us resisted, and I was part of the resistance. Dax touched his mask. We covered our faces, bound our skin, hid from the ash, from the air, from the very world we once loved. But denying our mana system made us weak, made us targets. And he lowered his hand. That's all I remember. That's all I remember, he sighed bitterly. I've passed it on, the last member of the resistance of true humanity in my world. At least this memory will be somewhere in your mind. Dax. Before Godfrey could continue, the tome flipped open. Right on the first page. Light burst from it like embers dancing off the page, and a golden-armored phantom, over 20 feet tall but with only half his body visible, appeared. First page, gravity lock. One of his hands hovered above Godfrey, with a circle of runes above and another circle beneath his foot. A visible golden pressure, like wind smashing downward, slammed into Godfrey, forcing him to bend, and the force kept increasing. He was stuck in that space, and the earth pulled him downward with each second. Cracks spread throughout the earth, and all the grass within and outside the circle was crushed. Not even the ground could withstand the pressure. The immortal armor covered his body, and it constructed a longsword in his right hand. Wrapping his gauntleted fingers around it, Godfrey broke the gravity lock by brandishing the longsword. Jin was already close. Massive amounts of grass were uprooted as he slid to a halt right before Godfrey, lifted his hammer with a roar, and swung it downward. But at that moment, Godfrey activated Will Freeze, and the massive humanoid creature froze mid-swing. Even the grass that was mid-air froze. Dax's eyes widened. That was the most powerful Will Freeze he had ever seen. It was more like a king's decree that even a blade of grass had to obey. He defied all laws in that small space. It was. It was. It was beyond anything he had ever seen. Captain Arian was right. Godfrey was indeed one of a kind. Dax's eyes gleamed. His eyes went to his right as Godfrey had closed in, swinging his sword at him. The second page opened, blink. With a flash of bright light, Dax vanished while a massive mana beam split the boulder he once stood on into two. In that moment, Dax appeared where Godfrey once stood, and his tome flipped back to the first page. That phantom appeared once more, caging Godfrey in a gravity lock. He broke it in the next second, but Jin had struck the ground and it ruptured, with molten magma spilling out like a geyser. Godfrey teleported away as a golden diagram appeared, and Solstice lunged out, swinging his twin swords at Dax, but all that was left were the embers that came out from his tome. The Dragon Knight was left with Jin. Solstice leaped, spinning his body midair, narrowly evading Jin's hammer, but at that moment, Jin blinked away and appeared at a different location. "Two can play that game," Godfrey said as he retrieved Solstice and unleashed him right before Jin's face. Solstice slammed his forehead into Jin's own, forcing the giant creature to slide several meters backwards, leaving two massive gullies in his wake. Just then, Dax used gravity lock on Solstice. Godfrey tracked him with his eyes. Dax was 100 meters away from his previous location, which meant nearly 150 from where he was. Two golden diagrams popped up beside Dax, unleashing Tempest and Toria. But two Titan-armored phantoms appeared and used gravity lock on both knights. Their glowing, translucent hands hovered above the knights, forcing them to their knees. Purple light flashed in the darkness as Godfrey appeared behind him. He slammed his hand downward, aiming to slam Dax into the ground with telekinesis, but Dax blinked once more. Not once but 4 times, and the third page of his tome flipped open. Third page, demolition. The earth was torn apart by pure mana. All Godfrey saw was pure white as the earth right below him, and his knights fractured and imploded. A bright, blinding white light spread out, turning the night into a stark day for several seconds. Dax made sure he retrieved Jin and teleported a few more times as over a 600-meter radius was caught in the blast. All that remained was a vast, deep black hole, and rock fragments of different sizes, floating about like gravity, had lost its power in that afflicted area. On one of the rocks, Godfrey stood completely unscathed. His golden eyes pierced through the eye holes of his crimson armor as he pointed his sword at Dax. "I did not expect this." Mana amplified his voice. "Me too. I thought you wouldn't survive that one. Demolition restricts space. You wouldn't have been able to teleport if you weren't using the tome spell. That means you tanked that blow head-on. You're ridiculous," Dax responded. Godfrey lunged toward him. "That tome's power is intense. It has turned Dax into some kind of mage, a deadly one. I haven't seen him use 2 skills at once, but he can use 1 skill at different places. I still don't understand the mechanics, so I'm charging blind. For a mage, it's best I maintain close contact, but with that teleportation spell, he's like a fly." He summoned Dirge behind him. She slammed her staff into the ground and summoned thousands of shadow wraiths, all of whom charged at Dax from all sides. Godfrey wanted to hide in their midst. Dax wasn't holding back, he wouldn't either. This wasn't a spar, unnecessary emotions would get him killed. Dax looked at the tome hovering above his hand. It flipped to the 5th page and embers burst forth. Then it flipped quickly to the 4th page. 4th page, extinguish. 5 pillars appeared all around him as ribbons made of flames danced around his body. He levitated as flames burst out from the empty space between the rocks. Anyone would have expected the flames to come from the rocks, but they were like magnets, calling forth flames from a different place. The flames roared like a dragon's breath. Over half the Shadow Wraith army Dirge summoned was wiped out. But Godfrey burst out of the flames, teleported, and appeared before Dax, his hand already before his chest. He slammed Dax into the ground. The earth quaked. Godfrey spotted a hammer from the corner of his eyes. It was just inches away from his face when he vanished, reappearing beside Jin, lowering his body as he sliced the back of its leg just before its foot. With a roar, Jin fell on one knee but swung his hammer regardless as magma burst out of his entire body. But as it spread out, Godfrey encased him in ice. It took a lot of quick thinking to figure out which skill to use, and he wasn't sure if he was perfect. Still at high speed, Godfrey made a swift turn to face Dax once again. This time, Solstice, Toria, and Tempest were all around Dax, who rose to one knee, groaning heavily. "Who won?" he asked softly as the black skis turned crimson. Several meteors tore through the clouds. It was his fifth page, Meteor Rain, a spell that took a while to appear. A supergiant phantom appeared above the clouds and hovered his hand over the meteors, speeding their fall over 10 times. In a blink of an eye, the meteors were already close. Dax looked at Godfrey. "I guess we both lost." Boom! Before the meteors touched the earth, the grass field was wiped out, and the very earth itself shook so much it affected Paradise City. Explosions rang out, and massive amounts of dirt rose into the air as kilometers of landmass were bombarded into absolute ruins. "What's going on there?" A regular at the wall looked at the horizon. "It's like a battle between demigods. That can't be a spar, it's a death duel. Is it the elites?" Another asked as he gazed at the crimson skis. Arian stood on his veranda. He felt the quaking and saw the meteors falling from the sky. It couldn't be that this fight had anything to do with Godfrey, as the meteor rain wreaked havoc on the field, turning kilometers of grasslands into a hell on earth. Two men stood inside a golden dome. Godfrey stood in his crimson immortal armor, staring at Dax, who was on one knee. They could feel the earth trembling. The carnage of the meteor rain reflected in Dax's eyes as he watched in stupor. A spell that was supposed to kill both of them rain havoc while he was protected within this dome. Several meteors struck the dome and shattered. Godfrey stood there, seemingly unwavered, but he knew this dome would have shattered several times had it not been for the amount of mana he was pumping into it to keep it up. Without this dome, the immortal armor would probably remain intact, but he who was inside might be scorched beyond belief by the heat. From how the air twisted, its heat alone was beyond what some demigods could endure. This was total annihilation. Dax was a walking vessel of mass destruction, with the mind to end it all, including himself. Dax smiled, and the tome slowly flipped to the third page. Once he activated the demolition spell, this entire place would be gone. There would be nowhere for him to teleport to, and demolition's spatial lock would trap Godfrey, exposing him to the meteor rain. Activating that skill would mean death, unavoidable death for both of them. Godfrey knew it. Unless he was willing to use grief transfer and send the damage to his knights so he could escape, he wouldn't survive. Even if he didn't, the damage would be severe. Yet, he had never been this calm. "Dax, stop." Godfrey tossed his longsword aside. "It's enough." Dax looked at him. "You can stab your sword through my chest before I activate this spell," he said. "From what I've seen, your death won't really affect the spell. It will still work and I might die," Godfrey replied. "I can kill him," the immortal armor spoke up, but Godfrey ignored it. An unexpected attack might work, but that's not what he wanted right now. He was king. He should be able to recognize a talent, a worthy addition to his nation. He had a castle, and whatever he chose to become part of the castle could become one. Weren't things kept in castles? Didn't people live in castles? For a long time, Godfrey did not understand how well to use his summon because he was in a world with beast, plant, and humanoid summoners, all fighting. He didn't even know where he belonged or how to efficiently use his summon. But when he spoke to Percival, Oliver, ardent and loosey about his summon, it suddenly clicked. His summon was a structure that had a collection of entities. A structure. Dax was a summon. He was customized to become one with the tome, so there was no need for a beast infusion. The only thing he hated was his world's mana system, and he could override it by giving him a false heart. That would bring him under Patan's mana system, ridding him of the plague completely. This was an opportunity to get a true mage knight. It all depended on Dax's compliance. If it didn't work, they might both die here. So you're afraid of dying then? Dax's voice rang. I don't want you to die, Dax. Trying to kill yourself has a chance of hurting your summoner, and since you want to die anyway, you clearly have no affection for your summoner, Godfrey responded. Dax was silent for a moment, then chuckled. Is it that obvious? We summoners can be like that, especially humanoid summoners. We don't recognize that what we have aren't just fighters but people who once had a life, who once had freedom. Godfrey stretched out his hand. Even though I'm also not justified, killing yourself isn't worth it. Dax exhaled and sat down. I was 12 when Mana came to our world, and I think I died at 13. I saw Saul as a father. You know, it's those you love the most you can hate the most. I was always struggling to meet expectations with no congratulations, not even once, but I guess I owed him my second chance at life. His eyes flickered. He lifted up his hand and touched the cracks on his face. I can get rid of the plague permanently. Godfrey's statement made Dax turn toward him. What? Godfrey took bold steps, closing the gap between them with each step until he was right before Dax. He squatted. I can rid every trace of the Ignikai mana system from you, but it comes with a cost. What is the cost? You'll have to reject Saul as your summoner. I'll die. You want to die? Both of them stared into each other's eyes. Godfrey finally broke the silence between them. I can make you a knight. You won't be in a dark soul space but a castle. You'll have your own personal tower. All traces of the Ignikai mana system will be gone as you'll transfer to the Patan mana system. Dax lifted an eyebrow. This sounds like some kind of Eden on another side of an ocean filled with deadly demigod monsters. Once I leave Saul's soul space, I die. You wanted to die, so there's no harm in taking a leap of faith, Godfrey replied, then lowered his head. He deactivated the immortal armor and sat beside Dax. Did you know I was made king? King of an entire race. They see me as their savior, but I'm a 19-year-old dealing with centuries-old people. I'm supposed to restore the order, but to be honest, I have little clue as to what I'm doing. I need help. Sounds like a tough burden. At least it made you ridiculously strong. I needed a powerful relic to match you, Dax replied. I've always wanted this plague off me. Since you're certain, I accept. Embers began to billow out of his body after he said that. He was already being erased from Saul's soul space. At that moment, Godfrey sensed a rumbling. He wasn't in his soul space, but he could feel the castle was building another chamber. It worked. It actually worked. Godfrey's soul opened his eyes and saw a new bridge was being built. Bricks after bricks manifested from nowhere, forming a pathway to a new tower which was being constructed. Massive blocks came from nowhere and began to fit themselves into their respective areas. There were golden veins below the structure. It was being covered rapidly, but that had to be the veins of his soul being linked to Dax as an anchor. He shut his eyes and appeared in the alchemist's meeting room. Most of them weren't present, but the chief alchemist was. We saw, the chief alchemist said before Godfrey could speak. Will the false heart change him? It will. What you brought is a summon linked to one of the most powerful offensive relics of Generation Zero. That relic will keep getting more pages the stronger he grows. You have impressed me with this new talent, my king. The chief alchemist responded with a soft nod. It wasn't easy. It couldn't be, but we won't face a problem with this knight. All we need is the heart implant, which will be done after we've prepared him. Then we shall proceed with his armor, the chief alchemist told him. This knight is a good addition and would be of much help when the ruination comes. Once the news reaches the Titan midgets, I'm sure they'll be excited to make another armor. Godfrey leaned forward. You're talking about the blacksmiths. Where are they? The chief alchemist stretched his hand, and an image manifested over the long table. It was a place brimming with heat and thousands of short, white-haired Pathans, a different race called the midgets, each of them working at their own individual smithy. It was like a volcano was turned into a workshop. The technology, the rune machines acting like escalators to take them to higher floors, or the rollers that sent crafted armor pieces to the examiners. These are our blacksmiths, the Titan midgets. We call them the giants of Patan. The armor of each golden knight is meticulously handcrafted and enchanted with runes, one of the core foundations of our mana system. Strange words gifted to us, and our beasts when our minds were opened by the mana trees do. As the chief alchemist spoke, Godfrey watched these small blacksmiths work without the knowledge that they were being watched. They would lift massive objects like they weighed nothing. Imagine having the word Titan attached to midget, two opposing words fused for just one race. The noisy yet strangely harmonious sound of hammers striking and forming metal, the sizzling of hot metal being dipped in cold water, the orange flames from the forge, it sank into his eyes. This was an entire community right within the castle. The unseen part of a golden knight's glory, the invisible figures his noble knights trusted with their lives to make durable armors worthy of slaying whatever foe they might face. We gathered all great talents in Patan to create the order. All races, only the Goliaths were not compliant. These little men are the origin of Patan's civilization, the origin of our united language and reinforced building technology. They built the Golden Order Castle. The chief alchemist dispersed the image, the castle that housed and trained 2 million knights. Then the castle I saw in paradise is not the main Golden Order castle but a secondary one built when the order had fallen, when the city that bred the strongest fighters sank, when our numbers had dwindled to the bare minimum, when the ruination had beaten us both internally and externally, the chief alchemist replied. Once I'm done with all this, surviving the ruination, I would like to see a true golden castle or whatever ruins remain, Godfrey said. I believe with the addition of this new knight, your chances of surviving the ruination are higher. However, we have sensed that the mana tree is a bit too aggressive this time around. Too much power is receiving her aid. This means whatever she will unleash during the ruination will be completely monstrous. Godfrey rose to his feet. As monstrous as they will be, I still see advantage. The ruination will provide me enough cores for all 10 of you, then I can unseal my next knight. It's the perfect opportunity. Godfrey nodded at the chief alchemist, then appeared in his throne room. He stood in the middle of the hall looking at the throne. There was nothing on it, but a vague feeling told him something sat there, watching him. Maybe after defeating the presence of the unknown king, all he gained might not just be the third core. A part of that being now followed him. It couldn't be seen, it couldn't be felt. Before he didn't even know, but right now, staring at that crown, he felt something was still on it. A part of him. Godfrey had no idea Snow had seen something similar. His soul might be quite different from before. I'm one step closer to my goal, Godfrey said and vanished. His eyes opened in the real world and, in a flash of violet light, he was gone. Shortly after Godfrey left, Saul arrived. He looked around. All he could see until the end of his vision was a wasteland with several craters. The land was scorched black. The battle that had occurred here had turned this land barren. It would take the intervention of another demigod or the passage of time, probably decades or centuries, before it healed on its own. Space cracked. Saul turned toward it and saw Gabriel emerge from the crack. Both men stared at each other, one floating, the other standing on land. "You shouldn't have sent Dax. Now he's dead," Gabriel said. Saul stood there silent. His anger couldn't find an expression because it was simply too much, but his eyes were dark, his mere aura causing a cyclone. As he turned away and was about to leave, Gabriel's voice rang out. "I won't allow you to attack him at his home. There will be retribution. I didn't just lose a summon, I lost much more. I lost something I couldn't afford to lose." His voice was low and calm. "What you caused has ruined this place, and it will affect the city. I can hold you accountable for this reckless action," Gabriel replied. Saul glared at him. "I want to see you try." His eyes gleamed. Gabriel folded his arms. "Do not test me, Saul. I acknowledge your strength, but wait for him at the tournament." "I am getting fed up with you." Saul maintained his glare, then averted his eyes and walked away. "You're in for a surprise." Gabriel's eyes gleamed as his lips rose a bit. "A shocking one. That castle is just splendid." Outside a building sitting on a plain with grass that spread seemingly to the ends of the earth, a white-haired man chopped wood on a stump, while a tall blue-skinned man, wearing a fanged gray steel mask and long gray hair, practiced with his katana not far from him. "Isshin," Arian said, and Isshin stopped, turned, and looked at his summoner. "Are you not supposed to help?" Arian aimed his axe at the blue-skinned Oni Ronin, who was over 2 times his height. Isshin turned and was about to resume his practice when Arian kicked a stump, one he planned to turn into firewood. It didn't have roots like this one he used as a chopping block. Isshin tilted his head, revealing his side profile. The braids by the sides of his face danced as his katana gleamed. He moved like a blur, slicing the stump into several even pieces and kicking it into the air. They flew and fell on the chopping block, stacking on each other. Arian opened his arms wide. "See, you're good at this." Isshin looked away. Arian turned toward where his summon was looking and saw 2 young men in the distance. His hands went to his waist as they drew close and began to jog. "It's been 3 days since that earth-shaking battle. He finally showed up. Both of them," Arian said inwardly. "You look like a proper family man, Captain Arian." Percival smiled as he stood before Arian with Godfrey. "I'm no longer Captain Percival. Glad to see you back on Earth." Arian chuckled, then turned to Godfrey, who tucked his hands into his black jacket. "I see you've recovered." "You grew a beard," Godfrey said, still staring at Arian's beard. It wasn't much, just a little, but he knew and saw Arian every day for over a year, and not once was his chin not shaved clean. But there was peace in his eyes. His teacher had lost all his sharpness. That intimidating aura he once commanded back when he first saw him was gone. Maybe all this while, this part of Arian was there, within the dreaded Ronin that had carved his name into the hearts of the authorities' agents. Arian caressed his slightly bushy jawline and laughed a bit. "I've gotten used to it. How about you? I still remember how you were when you left, but later on, I heard you got together with another member of the Pendragon family." "I did," Godfrey responded with a nod. Arian nodded. "I'm glad you're feeling much better now." Godfrey's lips curled upward. "So how was the sea?" Arian turned to Percival. "Beautiful, really beautiful," Percival said and looked at Arian's home. "How's your wife?" Arian's smile became a little strained. "It's all right." He sat on the stump. Percival looked at Godfrey, and they both looked at Isshin, who reacted noticeably to that question. "What happened?" Godfrey squatted. His eyes slightly narrowed as he stared at Arian with concern, though it looked a bit odd with his blackout eyes. His emotions could be spotted through his facial expressions, as his eyes just couldn't show them. "Well, we lost our kid back when we were going in search of her. I had no idea she was pregnant. She had no idea either, but I guess since we were not able to communicate, she wasn't able to tell me when it was discovered. Well, she also lost it, and I've never shared what happened back then, but they were all within trees when we got there. There was this tree-like creature with two humanoid tree-like people, according to their account. He exhaled. That tree monster left with the other, leaving the last one. It didn't kill them, which we found strange, but since she came back, Kiara found out she can't give birth. According to the doctors, their systems were altered. They were in a process of being transformed into what we don't know. Arian smiled bitterly. We had no problem with it until she started seeing the white gate. The moment Arian said that, Godfrey's expression changed while Percival faced the sky. He already knew how it would end from here. That was an opportunity to regain her ability to give birth. At first, she resisted because of me, then she tried convincing me, but I know how this goes. You get the power, then it uses you to fuel the desire of another. You hurt one and it grants another power for vengeance. It's a circle, and there is a probability we'll lose what we had, our peace, for something that wasn't guaranteed. Arian looked at them. Her desire kept rising each time that gate popped up in the bedroom, sometimes here on the field as you look out the window. It knows, the mana tree knows, if it gets her, it gets me. It brings me back into the game. Arian clenched his teeth, then released them. The strange thing is, I'm afraid of the people who will add to the pile once I'm forced to return. He cleared his throat, blinked several times, and looked at the young men before him. He cleared his throat to ensure he pushed everything that welled up in his heart down. She hasn't taken the bait yet. Her affection for me still stands, but we aren't really talking much since, in a way, I'm in the way of her getting a child. That aside, Arian exhaled. What did you do 3 days ago? He looked at Godfrey. Or was it both of you? It was Godfrey, Percival responded, noticing Arian didn't want to go further about his wife. I didn't even know about it until the next day. How would you? You were sleeping on my bed with Lucy. Must have been a dream. You even slept through the earthquake. Percival almost choked and began to cough. It didn't get to that area. He shot a glare at Godfrey that said, "Did you have to say that?" Arian smiled. You must have done some damage then. Saul has changed the entire concept of the tournament. It was supposed to be for the cohort alone, but now it's been turned into a spectacle for everyone in paradise to attend. That aside, he's separating the elite class into 2 teams, yellow and black. You, Percival, Arden, and Oliver are in the yellow team, while Arnold, Nathan, and Alora are in the black team. Saul is the one setting the matches and the rules, meaning it's already disadvantageous for you guys. We heard. Saul's reacting to the loss of his summon and most likely the relic too, Godfrey replied. Arian looked at his student. Then you've stepped on his tail. I know my teacher, and I know what it's like when he's angry. He shut his eyes and exhaled heavily. He wants to kill you publicly, and not just that. He's out for everyone in the yellow team. Those he knows are on your side. We figured. He's not trying to even hide it. Percival clicked his tongue. I've thought about it, and these changes make it easier for us to destroy Saul's plans. Once we win, I'll publicly reject the demigod's essence, Godfrey said. His declaration at the end would seal everything, and those knights would know their brothers and sisters whom they left behind fought in this tournament for them. Then you have to be prepared, Arian began. This is a dungeon, just an organized one. People are going to watch you go through pain. It's like you're stepping into a lawless domain, a gladiator's battle where death isn't odd. In fact, it's expected. He paused, then continued. My teacher has spent most of his life in dungeons and creating his own dungeons where he slays those that enter. His concept of death is tilted. He's no different from a man trained in the wild. Saul is a monster in human skin. He chases after strength, uses it to control like that's all he is and all he has. His eyes flickered. He becomes erratic once that control slips and does everything to eliminate a perceived threat. Arian stared at Godfrey's placid expression. The young man had expected this outcome and was ready to face it, while Percival had a solemn look. I've faced something like this before, back when I joined the cohort. That was what the pit was for. Bodies were dragged out several times. People feared the cohort for their strength and their nature. They were stronger but more like lions. I made the cohort a pack. But now, rules would bind you in that coliseum. You can only pray a member of your team isn't killed. Saul right now is no different from a vengeful lion. The public doesn't have to like what he does to acknowledge his overwhelming power, which protects them from the authorities and the fanatics. Arian stood up, for a man focused on strength. He knows how to use it to manipulate the public, because right now, he's revered for the feats his summons have shown. Godfrey and Percival held on to Arian's words as they arrived at the Colosseum the next day. The structure beneath the Colosseum was massive, like a set behind a stage. There were lots of corridors, but the main one was T-shaped. Team Yellow had one end, Team Black had the other. All of Team Yellow gathered at the T-junction. "It doesn't feel like we're in the modern age any longer," Percival said as he looked up. He could hear the faint sound coming from the crowd above. "I guess today's the day," Oliver muttered. "I've been wondering. The other team has 3 summoners, which means 3 summons. Who's the 4th?" Godfrey asked with a slight crease in his eyebrows. "I got it." Lucy's voice made all of them turn toward the bright sunny light flooding through the door that she pushed open while rushing toward them. She held a tablet. When Lucy approached them, she switched on the tablet and looked at what was on the screen. "The first battle is going to be a group battle. Each team will bring out 2 people, and Oliver and Arden have already been chosen to face Nathan and Alora." "This is a joke," Godfrey scowled. "How can saints face demigods? There are 4 tiers in between them. This isn't even a match." Percival frowned. "We just got to know about this now. It's obvious this is a setup, and for a group match, we are supposed to choose who fights," Godfrey stated. Arden leaned against the wall. "Saul will justify that whatever we face is for us to learn and grow from it. We're going to lose, no doubt, but I don't think we'll die. Fingers crossed, though." Oliver exhaled but said nothing. The rules are those who lose are eliminated, meaning whoever is left will face those on the other team. A draw also means both sides will be eliminated. I think he's doing this so everyone will fight with all they have," Lucy said. "Well, since he plans to eliminate Oliver and Arden, I guess me and Godfrey are going to face 3 of them." Lucy nodded to Percival's statement as she slid to the next page, only for her eyes to widen abruptly. Arden drew close, her eyes also growing wide, and she looked at Percival with concern. "What?" Percival raised an eyebrow. Godfrey was also puzzled until he drew close and looked at the screen. It was Percival against Abaddon. "Abaddon? Why, who the F-Earth's target?" Lucy stuttered as she stared at Percival. "You're telling me the captain can just add one of his summons to Team Black?" Oliver was already at the limit. He was already breathing through his mouth to calm himself. "Technically, everyone thinks Abaddon is his weakest out of the 3. And Team Black has just 3 members. One who is a kid and will be perceived to have little training, and another, a girl who hasn't gathered enough experience. The only capable member in the public's eyes will be Arnold. Then if you look at our team, apart from me and Oliver, both Percival and Godfrey are known to be exceptional during Captain Arian's time. It's a well-thought-out plan, and besides, I doubt the people will want Captain Saul out of that position despite his brutality." Arden looked at them. "You can't defeat a philanthropist. Captain Saul hands out cores, Paragon, Progenitor, and even titled God cores to his new elites. People want that, and it's blinded quite a lot of us." "Then Percival is the first target to be killed, or at least his summons," Oliver muttered. Godfrey frowned deeply while Percival simply sighed. Just then, Team Black appeared at the entrance. Behind them was a 14-foot-tall knight in black armor and a silver mask, with his short white hair tied up in a ponytail at the top of his head. A tomahawk and a massive double-edged axe hung at his back. His heavy armor clinked with each step, and his presence weighed on the corridor like the place was suddenly sealed and short of air. Everyone looked at Team Black, Abaddon to be more specific. Alora smirked when they got to the T-junction. While they turned left, heading toward their own end, Abaddon paused before Team Yellow, his eyes locked on Percival. His presence loomed over them like a massive boulder casting a dark shadow on them. He took a step further, and Godfrey's voice rang out. Abaddon, his eyes went to Godfrey as he paused. Arnold stopped, his eyes slightly wide as he examined the scene right before his eyes. Abaddon stopped. What? Alora and Nathan looked at Arnold, as if trying to understand what was wrong with Abaddon. Abaddon turned and walked away. Arnold couldn't believe what just happened as he glanced at Godfrey once more. That boy. When they all left, Arden looked at Godfrey. I know how intimidating and cold that night can be, so how did you stop him just by saying his name? I know he's supposed to belong to you, but right now he's under Saul. Or is this one of your castle's skills? I'm not sure, Godfrey shrugged. All he knew was that he conveyed his warning to Abaddon just by saying his name. Of course, Abaddon didn't look like an existence that would be frightened by a threat. Something more made him leave, something internal. He turned toward Percival. Don't kill him. Percival raised an eyebrow. Shouldn't you tell that tank not to kill me? Just don't let him kill you and don't kill him either, Godfrey replied, and Percival massaged his forehead. If I may, my king, Solstice's voice rang. There are 4 greats when it comes to strength amongst us noble knights. Defender of the young, the morning star flail, the gatekeeper, wielder of the flanged mace, and him, the one whom an enclave of dragons, favored ones of our world, called the blood-tainted beast. Solstice paused. Your friend should be careful, but his luck is great because I have seen the Colosseum, and it limits the beast. Godfrey squinted. Percival isn't that lucky. There isn't much water for him, so he's already at a disadvantage against a knight who has mastered fighting on land. An enclave of dragons gave Abaddon a title. He must have been worthy of the prideful dragons, favored ones with far more potential and power than normal dragons, to lower their pride and give him a title out of respect and possibly fear. Oliver cleared his throat to get Godfrey's attention. You're going to face Arnold. That man is the second in command after Captain Saul. He isn't weak at all. Which summon are you going to send against him? I already have someone in mind, Godfrey said. In his soul space, a 10-foot-tall lean armored figure sat on a tall throne with 3 torches above it. His armor wasn't bulky like other melee knights, but streamlined to fit his lean physique. His short hair had turned white, and he wore a white face mask with 2 metal buckles at his neck, not because he had to, but because it was weird without it now. On one hand floated a tome which slowly flipped to the 7th page where he gazed at a volcanic hammer, his former identity. Team Black sat in a round room with a bench that went around it. A girl walked in and gave Arnold a tablet. He saw the matches and gave it to Alora. Nathan shuffled over to her and looked at the screen. The moment both of them saw the team match, the anticipation on their faces changed. Alora scoffed, almost laughing. This is an insult. All that training and this is what the captain gives us. Heroes of the past era, they're wannabes in this new age. Nathan pressed his palm against the bench and looked at the ceiling from where he could hear the noise coming from above. I've always wanted to teach Oliver and Arden a lesson. Alora glanced at Nathan. You're a twisted child. Nathan shrugged. Maybe. Alora looked at Arnold with a gaze that said, You're raising an insane child. Nathan's summon is a rare one. Humanoid beasts with intelligence, but the panda is inflicted with bloodlust because of its undead nature, and due to Nathan's special bond with it, he's naturally affected. Mentally, Arnold explained with his arms crossed. I'm not crazy. Captain Saul said we shouldn't let the weak look down on us. And they've been looking down on me this whole time, Nathan retorted loudly. Abaddon glanced at him, and he shut his mouth. Alora scoffed. "Hey," she snapped her fingers at Abaddon, earning his glance. She glanced back at him with a smirk. Arnold leaned forward. "I know you want to test your strength, Alora, but if you go against that, they'll spend days cleaning your remains off these walls." His words made Alora's smirk slowly vanish as she averted her eyes from Abaddon. Arnold knew she was displeased, but he didn't care about that. "Just handle Oliver and Arden." "Isn't it overkill? I don't think people will support us when they see a complete beatdown." Arnold chuckled at what Alora said. "Certainly this isn't a fight, but you see, one of the ways to shut people up is to feed them. Most of them are already grateful to the captain for the distribution of cores he did 2 months back. Their lives have improved, healthcare improved, security too. So, they'll have to cheer or watch in silence." Arnold laughed. "That's why he always says, watch what you do. Some poison isn't meant to kill you, it's meant to make you silent, and sometimes that silence is really painful. So." He glanced at both of them. "Go wild. The target here is the golden ace. The more pain you inflict on Arden and the bandage boy, the more furious our golden ace will feel. It's his fault after all, and when you face him, he'll bring out his best." Arnold turned toward Alora. "Don't you want to face his best?" His eyes gleamed when he saw Alora's excitement, only to shatter it with his next statement. "That's if he's able to defeat me, though." All of a sudden, their room jerked. Stones rumbled as the entire room began to ascend like an elevator. The higher they went, the louder the sound from above became. "It's time," Arnold said. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Demigod Essence Tournament, a spectacle between two teams, both members of the elite class. Vagabonds that have faced the outside world, raided countless dungeons, repelled the authorities' agents, and led countless regulars will today face each other for the opportunity to gain something not even peak-level demigod cores can give." With a grinding sound, the room came to a halt. They could see the massive coliseum with the bleachers filled with spectators, some cohort members amongst them already clamoring. At a designated spot higher than the bleachers sat their captain with Apollyon standing behind him. The man speaking stood beside him. "The first match will be a group battle. We shall welcome Nathan and Alora to represent Team Black." The portcullis went up and Alora stepped out with Nathan beside her. What they stood on wasn't sand but a paved floor, made from stones of a different world and reinforced with unknown technology. Their opponents are Arden and Oliver from Team Yellow. Both, though lower in tier, are known to be two of the most experienced vagabonds in the cohort. The man's voice echoed while Godfrey sat, hands entwined, his face solemn as he watched Oliver and Arden walk out of the room and into the arena. Percival held the portcullis. "What are you going to do if they're killed? Would you care that the one you're going after is a kid?" He turned to Godfrey. "What kid kills? What makes it an abomination to hurt them is their innocence and frailty. That won't exist if either Oliver or Arden is killed by him," Godfrey replied with a placid expression, his blackout eyes barely revealing anything other than shrouding coldness. "So you'll kill?" Percival's eyes narrowed, then he turned back to the ring. "And what will you do if I'm also killed? Will you kill your knight?" There was a brief silence, so stilling that Percival had to turn to face Godfrey. "No answer." "None." "Why?" "Because you won't die. There would be no tournament before that happens, even before Oliver and Arden are killed," Godfrey replied. At that moment, the room buzzed and they were instantly suppressed. "I guess they thought of interference. Godfrey, focus on winning this game, not saving lives. If you win, you shred Saul's dignity right before everyone. You weaken his reverence and it would never be firm again, restoring paradise. If you do otherwise, you'll become the public enemy. You can't become that here too." Percival locked eyes with him. Godfrey's eyes were blue. He could see his emotions. Those ocean blue eyes were a window, and his blackout eyes were a shield that hid these emotions. You can't be hated publicly a second time because you are trying to do a good thing. That's what you need me for, to stop you from acting with your heart but with your mind. Godfrey lowered his head. His hard gaze went to his clenched fist. Yes, the end goal was Saul, but if he did not act, his teammates might not end well. Could he watch that happen right before his eyes and do nothing? The most experienced. I'd love to see how that experience gets you out of this. Who knows, maybe I'll be surprised. Alora smirked as she crossed her arms, unleashing a portal before her. Her female insect knight walked out and assumed a stance with the white greatsword aimed at her opponents, who were over 70 meters away. "Hold back, Laura. Let's see what they can do," Alora said inwardly, and her summon responded with a slight dip of her head. Her black compound eyes, which were the only part of her face visible from the white mask, locked on both Arden and Oliver. Alora saw Arden summon her gorgeous harpy that swiftly left the ground, and she turned to Nathan. "Who are you going to face?" Nathan didn't reply. He simply fused with his 15-foot-tall muscular panda and charged on all fours toward Oliver with a roar that made the air ripple. "I guess you've made your choice. Now Big Miss Glasses over there should know there's a barrier. It's about 200 meters. Now," Alora hummed. "Should I let her know that aerial battle is my summon's forte, or let her dream?" While Alora stood there, Nathan's eyes gleamed from the dark space within his summon. He saw through its eyes. It was staring at Oliver, who unleashed a black diagram from which an 8-foot-tall Saint-tier humanoid walked out. It was a half-living, half-skeletal being with 4 arms. One held a spear, another a curved sword, while the upper 2 held swords. It had a black shadowy hood, revealing a bit of its skull, and black leather armor billowing with dark mist. A black mist ring burst out as this existence, which Oliver named Nightmare, shot forward, traversing the closing distance between him and the panda. When both of them were about to clash, Arden fused with her harpy and flapped her wings hard, and a massive gust of wind so strong that it was visible blasted the panda's face. But that gust that could sweep off buildings only acted as a disturbance. The panda swung its claws but missed Nightmare, whom it couldn't see because of the disturbance. Nightmare popped up from where it didn't expect and thrust the spear towards its left eye, but the spear's tip bounced off. His mana wasn't enough to bridge the difference of 4 tiers. "Don't let him go," Nathan yelled from within, and his panda lunged at Nightmare, but he had predicted that move and slid right below the massive creature. He jabbed his swords into its stomach, and though he failed to pierce through, he managed to inflict dull, minuscule pains. The panda scrapped its claws against the floor, forced itself to turn, and threw itself at Nightmare. Oliver used exchange, then bent. As the panda's claws went over his head, Arden's harpy flew down and clawed the panda, but at that moment the panda's speed suddenly increased and it grabbed the harpy. "Caught you!" Nathan's eyes brightened as he held the harpy's wing tight and slammed its entire body against the floor. There was a loud sound that made the spectators tremble. With a savage grin, the panda turned to see Nightmare's spear. This time around, he swiftly shattered it with a blow and slammed right into Nightmare. In the next moment, there was an explosion as Nightmare crashed into the wall at the other end of the arena. Alora's eyes went to Nightmare and back at the harpy, which fought back with powerful gales, but still couldn't stop being wiped against the ground like a rug being dusted. "This is boring." Alora yawned and stretched her hand as the earth shook at the sound of Arden's harpy repeatedly crashing against the ground until it couldn't resist any more. Nightmare forced itself to its feet. It closed in once more and slashed at the panda's wrist with all its might. That blow hurt, like an ant biting a human. It forced the panda to free Arden out of anger and turn to Oliver's summon. Upon retrieving Nightmare, the panda's fury shifted and Oliver looked back, his eyes locking with Percival's. He saw Godfrey looking down. "Don't look, it's much bet." The panda grabbed his head, which was quite small in its massively clawed hand. "Summon your skeleton," Nathan roared within his summon. His anger flowed into his summon, which lifted Oliver and slammed him against the ground. Its force was measured so as not to kill him, but after slamming him against the ground several times, Oliver was covered in his own blood. Alora tilted her head. He would rather face such pummeling than unleash his summon, which is more durable. It's noble, but I know it's because he's afraid Nathan will kill his summon, not him. Alora thought as she watched the huge panda beat Oliver until he was a complete mess with broken bones in several parts of his body. A few members of the crowd were exhilarated, but a good number, especially those from the city, watched in silence. "I guess they're not entertained." Alora yawned, then rose to her feet. She saw Arden's harpy rise up and stagger as her wings were broken. The panda turned, glaring at her. It growled deeply, but the harpy began to slowly make her way toward the panda. Alora frowned as she noticed the harpy's aura wasn't the same. Summons grew stronger in battles. That was a verified fact. Some got breakthroughs after a long time or a really tough battle, and fortunately for Arden, it seemed that's what happened to her summon. But it was already badly injured. Seeing the harpy approaching, the panda charged toward it. When the panda leaped, its shadow looming above it, the harpy spun and swung both broken wings like the blades of a ceiling fan. Wind shaped like massive crescent blades swooshed out with the harpy, a paragon-tier being, concentrating all its power into one full-blown attack. Over a year's worth of mana into one move, and when it struck, the battlefield grew cold. With a loud sound, the panda buried the harpy's head into the ground. Its attack managed to graze the panda, but that was all. It pulled Arden out and flung her toward a wall before heading back to Alora. "Look at what you did to my target." Alora clicked her tongue as her eyes went to Percival, who watched behind the portcullis, and Godfrey, who faced the ground. "Scared to watch. It can't be that the Golden Ace is afraid of seeing his teammates getting beaten. We made one a paragon, they should be grateful." She rose to her feet, retrieved her summon, and went back. "That wasn't a pretty sight indeed, but we have a summon who can get them back as new, and not just that. Arden has risen from the saint tier, above the divine tier, above the origin tier to become a paragon without a core. I can already imagine she would become a progenitor with a core." The speaker's voice rang as Oliver and Arden were rushed out and straight toward the medical ward, where Valentina and other health professionals were. Quite a good number of people still weren't comfortable, but their lack of comfort reduced a lot when they considered Arden's evolution, although it wasn't pretty getting beaten up like that. Meanwhile, hundreds of cohort regulars were roaring. Their indoctrination into Saul's ideals was much deeper than those in the city. They could see that Arden had become stronger, which was beneficial in the long run, but the beating was still disturbing. This is what vagabonds face in dungeons, sometimes losing limbs. This is much better compared to losing your life. This tournament might not be pretty, but it will bring out the best out of the best, the speaker's voice echoed. Unfortunately for Team Yellow, they're down to 2 against 4. The next fight will be one summoner against Captain Saul's weakest summon, and it will begin in a few minutes, he announced. With rumbling sounds, the rooms descended and both teams went back down. When the room hit the ground floor and the grinding of stone against stone stopped, Percival sat down. "You didn't watch the fight." "I didn't, but I heard it, every single thing. As I listened, I saw, and as I saw, I grew angry. I ground my teeth until I was smiling at the end. My lips had a smile, but my teeth clenched hard." Godfrey slowly lifted up his head. His eyes met Percival's own. "I anticipated it, but when I saw it," Percival exhaled. "Saul isn't as battle-oriented as we thought, or he has people around him to fulfill the role of a shrewd mind. That term weakest, They're spreading it to make people think it's fair since Saul never revealed Dax as his summon until he came back and swiftly retrieved him. Few people still know, from what I've figured out. He stood up. The mission is to win. I'll make sure I go out with Abaddon, but let's go see our teammate. Godfrey rose to his feet and both of them walked out. Percival walked ahead while Godfrey was behind, silent and brooding. At the T-junction, they met Team Black also heading out. Alora waved at them, but they just walked past. Nathan saw Godfrey's side glance. It was cold, it was beyond chilling, forcing him to pause, but that glance didn't last. I understand Saul now. You might negotiate with the devil, but not with an angel. That angel means a straightforward man, one aspect personified, not shrewd, just retribution in the most direct form, and that is what I am going to do. He was right. Never run to an angel who isn't on your side, Godfrey muttered inwardly. His gaze was just a fleeting one, as both young men walked towards the exit. Arnold tapped Nathan's head. There's no need to worry, he won't get past me. Please let him. I want to feel the full extent of his strength. I'm sure if I use my skills together with Nathan, we can bring him down. Alora's words made Arnold shrug. It depends. On what? Why do you hold him in such high regard? Alora faced Arnold with a deep frown. I have not seen a summoner like that young man. It's almost like before him, others can't call themselves summoners. That's why it depends. If he uses one or maybe two summons, both of you might win, but if he summons an army, I doubt it. Arnold's response made Alora blink. An army? Yes. That young man has hundreds, if not thousands, of summons in his soul space. He's called the Golden Armored Devil for a reason in the outside world. Alora and Nathan looked at themselves. Godfrey and Percival went to the floor of the camp's vagabond infirmary, and they found Oliver on a bed while Arden was taken to a different area since she was stuck in her summon. Their situation isn't critical. With Mrs. Daniels here, it's impossible for them to die, a nurse said as she approached them with a soft smile. Both of them turned to her. That's good to hear, Percival replied. When will they be awake and we'll be able to see them? Godfrey asked. We can handle their injuries in a few minutes, but it would take hours for adequate mental rest before we recommend conversations, the nurse replied. Godfrey nodded, turned, and walked out. Percival followed him. Both of them went back to their room in silence, and a few minutes later, the room shook and began to ascend once more. We welcome to the arena Percival from Team Yellow, the famous Blue Ace, Lord of the Sea, who will be going against Abaddon, Captain Saul's left hand. I'm pretty sure this will be an exciting battle. I'm already feeling the thrill. As the speaker's voice rang, the rooms finally stopped and sunlight flooded the room through the portcullis. The response from the crowd was several times more resounding than the first match. Many wanted to see Percival's comeback after news of him leaving to another world spread months ago. Percival rose to his feet and stretched his hand toward Godfrey. Wish me luck. Godfrey looked at Percival's hand for a while, then stretched out his own and held it. Their eyes met. Percival could almost see the same 16-year-old Godfrey who he rescued from bullies. He smiled and left the room as the portcullis went up. As Percival walked into the arena, the crowd went wild, making him lift up his head to look at them. At that moment, a portal appeared midair and Abaddon fell from it, landing with a loud sound like a massive chunk of steel was thrown down. The moment the Black Knight's feet touched the floor, he reached out for the tomahawk and the great axe at his back. Abaddon rose to his feet and stretched out his muscular arms covered in thick metal plates above chainmail. The sun was bright, its unrelenting light descending on the arena like a golden beam. Before this light, Abaddon's armor changed from black to crimson, and his axes became like black jade. Have you heard the tale of a king, an indomitable king with might beyond what you can believe, a master of all weapons, excellent in all? Born of fate, strength, and imperial dignity, He walks time seeking noble knights to establish his empire. A voice rang in Abaddon's mind as his eyes went to Godfrey. It had been centuries since he heard this conversation, but that night, as he leaned by a tree hearing her speak, his conviction grew. I am part of his destiny. I have dreamt of him. I know more than just what the alchemist says. I've seen him, surrounded by clouds of darkness, yet his golden eyes pierced through. When he gazed at me, I felt stripped of all power. At that point, I knew without being told that what was before me wasn't a king, but the unknown king. Abaddon tilted his head toward Apollyon, who stood behind Saul. Unleash your beast. His deep, rumbling voice echoed as he faced Percival once more. His gauntleted fingers tightened around his weapons. Percival opened a portal, and King stepped out with Levi coiled around his body like a snake. The Sea King slammed his trident into the ground, and immediately thousands of water droplets appeared in every part of the arena. Abaddon shot toward Percival. You could tell this knight was heavy but still be in disbelief at his speed. With a couple of steps, Abaddon was already close to the king. A great portion of the water gathered together, forming a massive shark with its maw open. Seeing this, Abaddon didn't slow down. He flung his tomahawk and it sliced right through the massive shark, water spilling off the tomahawk as it kept spinning toward King. Levi left King, increasing his size to 20 meters almost instantly as it spat a massive burst of water, strong enough to bring down a skyscraper. At that moment, when the tomahawk and the torrent of water were about to clash, Abaddon suddenly appeared where the tomahawk was. It was now in his hand, and he slammed his left ironclad boot into the floor, spun and brought his great axe downward. It clashed with the torrent, unleashing a sharp mana slash that cut through the torrent, splitting it as the mana beam almost made contact with Levi's head. But it evaded. King shifted to the side, and as he took his first step, leaning forward to launch himself, the mana beam swooshed past him. Both him and the beam went past each other, one heading for the distant wall while King closed in on Abaddon. Abaddon met him with a horizontal slash while King swung his trident to block, but at that moment, a massive wall of water suddenly erupted from nowhere right in between them. It worked, but King also couldn't see the exact move his opponent made. A huge leviathan, almost 30 meters long this time, burst out of the upward waterfall, maw wide open, revealing 3 rows of fangs. King's ears picked up the whirling of a tomahawk, forcing him to tilt his head to his left. When had Abaddon thrown that tomahawk? It was too late to react as Abaddon appeared and swung his axe down, aiming to split King into 2, and he did. His great axe cleaved right through King, but he had managed to transform into his water form before then. Abaddon swiftly slammed the head of his axe into the floor as Levi burst through the water screen, slamming right into him. Although he prepared for it, the impact sent the knight into the air, but right when it seemed Abaddon would surely end in a crash, he suddenly transformed into a handsome golden-brown eagle with vast wings that blocked out the sun. It had runes at the edges of its wings and the sides of its neck, runes of strength. With an eagle's cry, Abaddon dived down, talons aimed at the leviathan who roared and charged at the massive bird. Levi spat another torrent. The eagle closed its eyes, made one massive flap and tucked its wings in as it dove down. The runes shone bright as the eagle tore through the torrent. It hit the leviathan with its beak and tore open a large hole. This eagle was known as the strongest of the sky, a creature in Pathan myth said to be able to shatter mountains with its beak and talons, and trouble the seas with the flap of its wings. With a loud roar that made the spectators tremble, Leviathan tried to pin down the eagle, but it flew to the highest point and shifted back to Abaddon, who then shifted into a huge horde orc chieftain, swinging his axe down. Mana coated its tip. Percival, that's a monster-slaying knight. Do something. Godfrey couldn't stop himself from yelling. King, who had remained in one spot this whole time, finally lifted up his trident. I am the sea, not its representative but its entirety. The moment the trident touched the ground, the area was suddenly filled with water and fish. Gasps resounded from every part of the bleachers, as people could finally see the outline of the barrier, protecting them from the impact of the battle. That barrier now looked like an upside-down giant glass bowl, filled to the brim with water. Abaddon lost his momentum as King swung his trident, and the water spun the Black Knight around the arena, before slamming him against the floor so hard the reinforced platform cracked. King floated in the water while Leviathan went around him. His blue eyes monitored the knight, who was clearly suffering from lack of oxygen and had to deal with an unfavorable terrain. Seeing this, King lowered his trident. This match was over. Percival turned to Godfrey and gave a thumbs up, but Godfrey wasn't smiling. The rune flame bear. Abaddon didn't reveal that. The bird and the orc couldn't do much in this restricted environment, but what about the bear? Was it also powerless? At that moment, flames burst out of Abaddon's armor. He shifted. The knight was replaced by a mighty brown bear with fur shaped like flames from the elbows of its hands all the way to its back. Each of them bore a rune. This massive bear was almost 30 feet tall with glowing fiery eyes and flaming claws. It had a bushy tail like that of a wolf. The moment the bear appeared, it came with such heat from its flaming body that a great amount of the water evaporated, turning into mist. The bear roared with all its might. Some of the spectators lost their hearing for a second, as a ring of fire rose up around the arena, turning what was once a world of water into a ring of fire. Facing Percival and his summons, the rune flame bear bared its fangs. The earth trembled as it charged toward them. Leviathan went ahead, beast against beast. It spat a torrent of water, and the rune flame bear replied with a burst of fire. A ring of fire formed around its mouth as the fire shot out with great intensity, almost like a beam. Fire and water clashed, the impact alone seeming to shake the foundations of the Colosseum. Both of them forced themselves closer and closer, until they were close enough for Abaddon to lift up his bare hand and slap the Leviathan. The blow forced it to the ground with a resounding boom. Roaring, the Leviathan went for the bear's head, but Abaddon grabbed the Leviathan's lower and upper jaws. Furious, Leviathan began to expand, growing far bigger than what the bear could handle. King slammed his trident again, filling up the place with water once more while Percival finally spoke. "Will freeze." The moment he said that, both King and Levi used will freeze on Abaddon, while water formed thick chains that wrapped around his hands and legs. "Abaddon," the Black Knight heard Saul's voice in his head. "Do not fail me. You're better than this, so kill him." Saul's firm command echoed in the knight's head, forcing his fiery eyes to brighten. All the runes on the bear's body burned with bright red light, and the bear's fur became a mix of red and brown. Its flames became much hotter as it unleashed another blast that wiped out the water. "Levi, don't swallow him." Percival's eyes widened as his Leviathan almost swallowed Abaddon, but chose to constrain him because of Percival's warning. The bear sank his hands into the Leviathan's claws, pushing back against it as it lifted its head to the Leviathan's head, which was almost at the 200-meter limit. The Leviathan was so big, there were several coiled parts above, all tightening, but there was still an opening. The bear unleashed its fire. When it breathed out, it sounded like a bomb detonating. The beam of fire shot from its mouth, striking the Leviathan's jaw, burning half its face and shattering the barrier. As the beam of fire kept going upward, it tore through the clouds and vanished. Though its head wiped out the clouds above the Colosseum and beyond, seeing Levi fall with fire and smoke billowing from its head, Percival retrieved his summon as King used that moment to close in. He had transformed into his water form, and his size rivaled Abaddon's bare shift. The Sea King's trident managed to pierce a bit, but Abaddon grabbed it and growled. King could already see the bear was exhausted. It was heaving and was slowly losing its strength to push back, yet it made fire rise around them. A great number of people rose to their feet as both summons glared at each other. Abaddon made the fire creep up King's body, while King created water chains that stabbed deep into the huge bear's body. Percival stood there, knowing one will freeze and he would win this battle, but that might end up in Abaddon's death. Levi was already in a critical state. He was running out of time. More people were rising to their feet with each second as their hearts drummed in their chests. Some were even short of breath. Some had their eyes so wide as if afraid to miss what would happen next. Enough! A loud voice exploded throughout the Colosseum, forcing everyone out of their absorbed state as they all turned to the golden-haired man behind the portcullis. Godfrey's breath trembled as it rolled out of his mouth. The portcullis rattled as if it couldn't handle his strength any longer. "Listen to me, to your king, and stand down," he said, confusing the crowd. "King, what rubbish! Do what I command you to." Saul rose to his feet when he saw Abaddon hesitate. Apollyon tilted her head as she saw Abaddon shift back to his normal form and retreat from the Sea King. There was pin-drop silence in the Colosseum. He fell on one knee, held his axe to support himself, and slowly bowed his head. Apollyon's grip on her staff tightened. Godfrey left the portcullis, went backward, and sat on the bench without a word. "You are redeemed. I still need your services." His voice was low. Abaddon trembled a bit. They could see him nodding gently. "I know you have killed countless. I know there's a mountain of corpses, innocent ones slain by you, but this day I tell you there's a king, an unfathomable king who still needs someone like you. Your services are still needed." An alchemist's voice echoed in Abaddon's mind. Yes, this was him. The king. It wasn't as he had expected, but it was him indeed. But first, before he left, he glanced at Apollyon, then at the Sea King. "It's a draw." As his voice rang, before the eyes of the audience, Abaddon became stone and broke apart into fleeting embers until nothing was left. The match, the speaker looked at Saul. Was his knight dead? Did it kill itself? "It's a draw," he announced, but the crowd were still shocked into silence at what just happened. No one expected this, especially not Saul. What just happened? Alora's eyes went wide. This time around, not even Arnold could reply. He was also staring at the arena with wide eyes, his face frozen in absolute disbelief. It was like time paused for the Colosseum. Everyone still couldn't process what just happened. Not once had there been such an occurrence. It was so strange, no one could speak. In unison, their eyes went to Saul, who was also on his feet. "The next game will be held tomorrow," he announced, turned and left with Apollyon right behind him. The crowd went cold as many eyes fell on Godfrey. Percival went back to the room and sat down. "Did you get him?" he whispered as the room began to descend. Godfrey nodded. "What happened up there has affected Saul's prestige. People will see you as more than meets the eye, a force that even Saul lost to. His plan failed and ours has taken a step further, but..." Percival looked at the wall. "When we get down, are we going to walk free or be surrounded?" Godfrey looked at the same place, his eyes dim. "What does it matter? We'll clear a path through whatever is in front of us." With a low yet heavy sound, the room finally reached the ground and they looked at the corridor, expecting some group of vagabonds or Team Black, but there was no aggressive force except the few people who were moving about. Both men looked at each other and stepped out. Team Black also stepped out at the same time, and they met at the T-junction. "You've sealed yourself for death with what you just did," Arnold said with a calm tone as his eyes bored into Godfrey. "Is that so?" Arnold smiled. "Even if the captain loses Apollyon, he will still be able to bring a swift end to your existence." Godfrey nodded. "He better, or I'll put an end to his own existence." His eyes went to Nathan, the 13-year-old who glared hard at him. Godfrey could see hate and the intense desire to hurt him in those eyes. Nathan could remember as clear as day when Saul rescued him from his burning house, which was set ablaze by a dungeon monster. That was the day he awakened, but didn't know what to do. Though everyone he once considered family died, Saul taught him a new life. He saw the captain as a father and wanted to be like him. Seeing this man win a match against his captain evoked a desire to kill. Alora's face was also solemn. After what she had seen, she couldn't joke with this tournament going forward. They had to win at all costs. Arnold nodded after hearing Godfrey's reply. "We'll meet in the arena tomorrow." With that, he led Team Black out of the Colosseum. Saul sat on his bed, a towel wrapped around his waist and came down to his knees. His wet hair stuck to his face as his eyes locked on Abaddon who stood by the wall. The sky had turned dark already, and a cool breeze flowed in through the window. It was over 6 hours since the second game ended and Saul had been silent. No one, not even his second-in-command, had heard a word from him. To face constant defeat at the hands of someone who should have less experience than him made Saul take a step back. This had never happened to him before. He kept a constant regimen of raiding dungeons without end. The dungeons he had cleared were in the hundreds. The monsters he had killed were in the tens of thousands. Even now, his first summon was out there in another world fighting. Once the ruination was over, he was meant to become even more than a monarch. He would grasp the fabled sovereign skill of will compulsion where he could control anyone's actions with a word alone. That was the true power of a god, but now he had lost. Not just one but two peak-level titled gods. All because of one name, Godfrey Daniels. His first plan turned into his loss. The second one was doing the same. It felt like each plan was for Godfrey and not for him. There was something he was missing here. There was something about this Godfrey. He couldn't see him as just one 19-year-old anymore. No. Apollyon, tell me, who is Godfrey Daniels to you? Apollyon looked at her summoner. He claims to be the unknown king every Golden Order knight was trained to serve, almost worship, back in my world. The unknown king was the heart of the Golden Order. Abaddon and I once belonged to this Golden Order. Saul's eyes narrowed. So that's why he called himself a king. Then what happened to Abaddon? I do not know. Sounds like you don't like this young man claiming to be the unknown king, but you have reverence for the unknown king. So, what if he turns out to be the true unknown king? Saul asked, his eyes drilling into her, but Apollyon remained as cold and stoic as ever. He isn't, that's not the king I saw, she replied. Regardless, I will keep you in my soul space from this moment henceforth. Saul's statement finally made the female knight tilt her head. You said you would not. Not anymore. Saul glared at her, then swiftly retrieved her to his soul space. He exhaled heavily, then rose to his feet and walked over to the window. Staring at the camp with a lot of vagabonds everywhere he looked, Saul lifted his gaze to the buildings in the city. Tell me every summon you know this king of yours has and their innate skills. Tell me their fighting patterns, their weapons, and what you think are their weaknesses. He said to Apollyon through his mind. His eyes gleamed. You're not the only one with an advantage, Godfrey. We'll finish this on my terms. His prestige amongst the people was already down. This was tarnishing the image he was trying to imprint into their minds for them to treat him like a god. He was on his path to developing a new skill that would increase his strength by a great amount. For that, he couldn't allow Godfrey to take another step. Suddenly, a crack appeared in his room and Gabriel stepped out. Saul turned. What are you doing here? You've lost 2 summons already. It's obvious you need help. Gabriel smiled softly. His handsome face and shoulder-length golden hair made him look harmlessly good-looking. He was the last person you could suspect of doing wrong. but his appearance made Saul's face turn ugly. "You brought him here." "Of course, I thought our captain could handle just one young man." Gabriel tilted his head, his smile growing wider. Saul scoffed, "You mock me." "I don't. You see, there are people called chosen ones in our world. They are just too unique, they just can't die like that. Have you read books with protagonists before? Yes, that's what chosen ones are, just the best kind of people our world loves." Gabriel began. There was no way he would mention the favored ones. He cleared his throat. "Godfrey is a chosen one, that's why he's so unique. That's why he has all these summons and is so strong, but defeating him is easy. After all, our world has what we call balance. Even the most overpowered skill has a counter out there somewhere." "Go straight to the point," Saul said coldly. "You're limited by your own rule, or you could have sent both summons to eliminate him. However, you'll draw hate from the public, so make him withdraw from the public's eye, then kill him in the dark." Gabriel sat on the bed and crossed one leg over the other. Saul squinted. "I see you don't follow. Send a threat. Lose horribly in the next match, or I'll make sure beyond all doubt that you shall bury your mother in 48 hours. Gabriel's eyes gleamed. No reasonable man will risk the life of their mother for a match that won't add or remove much from their personal lives. Gabriel rose to his feet. "Do that and you'll give the tournament a closure, then hunt him without restrictions." With those last words, Gabriel left. Saul stood there, basking in the silence of his room and the moon's soft glow. Maybe he would send a letter to Godfrey. He had two choices. Any reasonable person would choose to back out. Winning a game wasn't worth putting their mother at risk. He would carry both plans out. Make sure Arnold knew about all his summons and also force Godfrey to the wall with the threat. "Chosen one or not, as long as he bleeds, I won't let him live for long." "Frey," a soft voice rang as Valentina walked into her son's room, only to find him sitting cross-legged, meditating. She tiptoed to his table and dropped the plate filled with cookies. The moment she turned, she saw Godfrey behind her. His sudden appearance made her squeal. Godfrey found himself laughing as he stretched for a cookie. Valentina slapped his chest while glaring at him. "What did I do? Why will you appear behind me like that?" Her eyes widened, intensifying her glare. Godfrey clicked his tongue, then bit down on the cookie he took. His eyes grew wide, although they remained in blackout. "Like I remember." A genuine smile formed on his face, and when his mother saw his eyes turn blue, she also smiled. "How's your throat?" "My throat," Godfrey blinked. "I was far away, but I heard your voice. I could imagine how loud it was," Valentina said softly. Godfrey touched his throat. "It's fine." "Good. I've sent my resignation. I'll leave once this tournament is over. Your father is quite excited, talking about how you silenced thousands of people. He expects you to win the next match, and the cookie is for good luck." Godfrey chuckled. "What about milk? It's not perfect without." Valentina went past him, left his room, and came back in the next second. It seemed like she kept it outside, thinking he might not request it. She was stuck in between smiling or not smiling, forcing her lips to keep changing shapes. Was she happy or embarrassed? Godfrey took the milk from her and sat before his desk. Watching him consume what she made, Valentina could almost see her little boy. Cookies and milk had always been her apology snack to her son when she had worked for too long and he felt abandoned. Her eyes grew moist. She drew a deep breath to make sure no tears came down. "Do you know, every living being was made with restrictions. That is the law of life. The tree can grow hundreds of feet tall but can't feel what a human feels. Animals can feel, but they have no complex and deep emotions like we do. They just act on instinct most of the time." Godfrey heard the chief alchemist's voice, forcing him to slow down. "The mana tree is a concept, just one concept of life, just like time, fate, and space. She can't develop emotions like us, so when the mana tree gave birth, A part of her was born. That part that is like us. Going contrary to her making made that part weak, vulnerable, and completely powerless. Godfrey slowly turned to his mother. The manna tree split because of you. That's her love for you, a love even she couldn't tell she gave because it came out of the instinct of a mother birthing a child. Her own child. Godfrey's lips parted as he watched his mother wipe her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She swiftly apologized and quickly went for the door, but Godfrey was much faster. He wrapped his arms around her. A tight embrace, one without reservations. Valentina's arms went around his back. Mother and son melting into each other's embrace. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story. And if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.